Pokemon Legends Arceus is one of the most interesting Pokemon games of all time. Coming off of the insanely controversial release of BDSP, Pokemon's reputation was in the trash, but there was still hope. For the first time, Pokemon wanted to expand into the open world genre that Breath of the Wild had popularized. While not completely open, Legends Arceus was to feature huge areas very similar to the Crown Tundra DLC in terms of size. And with a whole new catching and battle system, this game was set to be a completely different experience than ever before. With open world Pokemon seemingly becoming the standard for the games going forward, I think we should look back at where it really started. Today, I will be playing through Pokemon Legends Arceus for the first time and finding out if it was actually good. The game begins with us looking at a bright yellow light that says we are going to be transported into a new world. So we pick our character and then wake up in this floating nothingness, in which Arceus appears and gives us a new iPhone, and then the game begins. We end up waking up on a beach and greeted by a man, and he tells us that we fell out of the sky. After making it clear that we have nowhere to go here, he decides to help us and introduces himself as Professor Laventon. We actually arrived as he was chasing down the starter Pokemon, so we decide to help him so we can get our first Pokemon. On the way to help him, we find this phone on the ground that is our phone, but it has changed a little bit. I guess this is what Arceus gave us. We get a message from Arceus saying to seek out all Pokemon. Well, considering we don't even have one, I think we should start small. Up ahead, we meet the professor and help him catch these Pokemon using the new mechanic in Legends Arceus. Here, all we have to do is hold the trigger and then release the throw Pokeball. As the professor, he wants to research all of these Pokemon and put them in the Pokédex. And, well, our goal is to catch every single Pokemon, so we decide to work together. So our first destination is Jubilife Village, indicating that this is the old version of Sinnoh. As we walk through the town, it's clear that we are not viewed very, openly. Let's just go with that. Yeah, anyone we talk to seems to not want to talk to us. Eventually we meet a girl named Akari who judges us again, just like everyone else, but then the professor comes in and says that they are part of the Survey Corps. Now the professor wants us to join the Survey Corps, although they need the permission of the captain, and she actually comes and tells us that she'll allow it. Also, considering her appearance, Captain Silene is obviously the predecessor of Cyrus, which is interesting considering the Survey Corps is a part of Team Galaxy, which is, I guess, supposed to be Team Galactic, although I don't think we're bad guys. Well, we have dinner and then learn about a huge rift in the sky, which apparently we fell out of. And afterwards, we're told that we'll be going through a trial tomorrow to decide if we can really join the Survey Corps. So we turn in for the night, and the next morning we meet with Akari, and she takes us to the Survey Corps building. Inside, we overhear the medical treatment of someone who was attacked by a wild Pokemon, and based on the conversations we had yesterday, it was insanely impressive, and no one has ever done this before. Caught 3 wild Pokemon back to back. Yeah, no wonder these guys need help. But we talked to the captain, and were assigned the task of collecting a Starly, Shinx, and a Bidoof. And to give us some help, the professor lets us choose one of these 3 starters, and I decide to go with Oshawott. As we're leaving to head to the Obsidian Fieldlands, we meet a man who seems to be a traveling salesman. His name is Volo of the Ginkgo Guild, and he is just passing by apparently, although he seems to know everything that we've done somehow. He challenges us to a battle, although it is not much of a challenge at all, and then we can head out of here and into the Obsidian Fieldlands. Now that we're here at the base camp, we can really just complete this challenge pretty fast because the 3 Pokemon we need to collect are just nearby. And there's nothing special about this, it just serves as a mini tutorial, and then we head back to Jubilife Village once we've collected them. When we report back to Silene, she finally gives us the approval to join the Survey Corps, although we do have one more person to talk to before we're official members, the Commander Kamado. When we speak to him, he asks us to fight him, not with Pokemon, like literally. Well, we get thrown on the floor, and he tells us that we have potential. Well, now that we're an official member of the Survey Corps, we can go back outside and learn one more thing before we leave. This is crafting, and it is pretty important in this game, although I would say it's pretty bare bones compared to any other open world crafting system. We also gain access to these side quests, which are really important to progress in this game, which I didn't expect, but hey, that's how it is here. So we talk to these people who who need things done for them, and then we head back to the Obsidian Fieldlands. Now here is where the journey really begins, and you get into the typical gameplay loop. So while you're out surveying, you have a couple things that you're pretty much always gonna do. Whenever you see a new Pokemon, you want to do your best to either catch it, battle it, or both. This is because you always want to make progress on their Pokédex entries. Now exactly how you do this varies between Pokemon, but they usually require you having to see it use a certain move, battling it a certain amount of times, catching it a certain amount of times, and well, you get the point. But regardless, I will say at the beginning part of this game, you probably won't see me getting many permanent team members because, I mean, do I really want to use the most common Sinnoh Pokemon ever? But back to the gameplay. So our main objective is to get our first star in the Survey Core, and to get it we have to complete quests or catch Pokemon, basically everything I just said. And there's no time limit or anything, you can take your time. I even went and got a new outfit and a haircut. I really do like this style of gameplay, even though I thought the tutorial dragged on quite a while. Well, after doing this, we finally reach the first star rank, and then we're asked by Akari to help her with something. Apparently she's not too good at commanding her Pikachu in battle, so we battle her, and actually I want to take this time to explain a new element in the battle system. So in this game, there's something called Agile Style and Strong Style moves. Now this is kind of hard to explain, and it's not the case every time you use one of these moves, but Agile Style usually allows you to do less damage, but in return you get to attack multiple times in a row, or you get your next turn sooner. Strong Style allows you to hit harder, but it takes longer for you to get your turn again. Now this is all dependent on how fast your Pokemon is versus the other Pokemon, and honestly it does get kind of complicated sometimes, but right now it's not too bad. But after the battle with Akari, we meet someone named Zisu, who is apparently pretty versed in Pokemon battling. She can even help us learn new moves in our Pokemon. But Akari and her discuss that apparently Akari is supposed to meet up with someone named Mai, so we make that our next objective. Back in the Obsidian Fieldlands, we meet with Akari and Mai, who says that she is a warden of the Diamond Clan. I'm gonna go ahead and guess that there's a Pearl Clan as well. Regardless, she says that she has a problem, but she first wants us to battle her. We quickly take down her Munchlax, and then she explains that she has to deal with a Alpha Pokemon and she needs your help. We'll get to what Alpha Pokemon are soon. She also mentions something about Almighty Sinnoh, which, I mean, to me, just sounds like she's trying to refer to Dialga, you know, saying how it controls time and stuff. Anyway, we follow her to where this Alpha Pokemon is, and it is a Kricketune, which we easily take down. Afterwards, we're greeted by a Pokemon named Wordier, which according to Mai is a very sacred Pokemon. But with that mission complete, we can head back to Jubilife and report back to the professor. While we're eating dinner, we hear that there's a frenzied Pokemon named Kleavor, which has been tearing up the Survey Core. I have a feeling we might be the one to take care of that. So we go to take on Kleavor, however, we're stopped by Leon of the Pearl Clan, who says that he is the warden of Kleavor. But it seems that Leon has no interest in letting us see Kleavor because he is rampaging too much, and he challenges us to a battle with his Gumi. Afterwards, the leader of the Pearl Clan, Arita, shows up and tells us that we can help if we can figure out a way. So we head back to the professor to see what we can do. Oh, and on the way back, we evolve our Oshawott into Duat. Back at the professor's lab, we try to figure out what we can do to tame Kleavor, and find that if we can make his favorite foods into throwable balls, maybe it would tame him. I guess there's only one way to find out. On our way back, the Diamond Clan greets us with Wordier, and Adaman gives us a flute that allows us to ride on Wordier's back, and also the Pokemon gives us a Mind Plate. Now, in previous Pokemon games, you could use these to boost your stats, but I think these serve a story purpose in this game. Well, we head back to Leon and tell him our plan, although Arita wants us to battle her first to see if we're really strong enough to do this. After taking on her Glaceon, we manage to get these balms together that we can use to hopefully soothe Kleavor. Now we can start the first major boss fight of this game, and this is very interesting and new to the Pokemon franchise. Instead of just a turn-based battle, it's more of like an action RPG style battle where you have to avoid attacks by dodging and also throwing these balms. Occasionally you will be allowed to throw your Pokemon out and battle it, but but you still have to complete it using the bombs. I think this technique will ultimately get better in Legend ZA, as I have already played that game, but I do want to say that it is very interesting how they introduced it in this one. This first fight here is not that challenging, although it definitely will pick up later in the game, but with that we get the insect plate and finally calm down Cleavor. Now we can head back to the village, but when we get here, Volo appears again and tells us that we can keep collecting these plates and maybe we can see something cool happening. Honestly, I don't even know how he knows what we're doing. This guy is just like watching in the bushes somewhere. Well, we report back to Kamado and he tells us that while we did a good job today, there are actually plenty of more frenzied Pokemon for us to stop, so yeah, I feel like this is gonna be a recurring theme of the game. But now we can have dinner with the professor and Akari and head to bed. The next morning we meet someone from the Diamond Clan named Arezu, and she says that she's a hairdresser. That's pretty much it. But we go talk to the captain and she gives us our second star, and then we get our next mission from Kamado. But when we walk into his office, he seems to be having a conversation with Arezu about a situation involving Ursaluna. He ends up telling us our next mission is to go study Ursaluna in the Crimson Mirelands. But before we go, Akari wants to battle us again, and she has a new Pokemon, Mime Jr., which we have not seen yet, and Pikachu. While she's a little bit stronger, still she is unable to defeat us, and we head on into the Crimson Mirelands. After getting a couple quests and collecting new Pokemon, we head to the Salacion ruins as instructed and meet with Caliba of the Pearl Clan. It seems that she doesn't really have any interest in working with us though, and Volo appears and asks to battle us. I really don't understand what this guy wants from us. Well, afterwards we're asked to go recover a wall fragment of the ruins which were stolen by 3 bandits named the Misfortunes. We eventually track them down and their names are Charm, Clover, and Coin. It'd be a rough life if I was named Coin. Well, we only battle one of them and she doesn't really pose any challenge, so we bring the wall fragment back to Kalaba and Volo, and she has a change of heart and now suddenly wants to work with us. So I guess we're gonna go take care of that Ursaluna now. So she takes us to find the Ursaluna and we battle it and calm it down, although it was not frenzied like the Cleavor was. And much like every other Pokemon we've been battling and calming down, he gives us a plate. Well, we go back to the Galaxy HQ to discuss with Kamado, and it seems like we cannot catch a break because there is another frenzied Pokemon called Lilligant, which is in the Crimson Mirelands, and we're asked to go handle it. On the way there, we find Arezu, who has sprained her ankle because she was chased down by a Pokemon while she was making balms to calm the Lilligant. She also knew about this, but I guess she just didn't feel like sharing with the rest of us. Well, anyway, it's our turn to go help her out. And if this seems like it's moving pretty fast, I think it is. I mean, we're already taking on the next frenzied Pokemon, and I really do like this battle. It's a step up from the last. It's the same concept of throwing bombs at the frenzied Pokemon and avoiding attacks, but these are definitely a little bit more difficult than the Cleavor was. She'll jump in the air and then send shockwaves on a different move. It's actually pretty complicated for a Pokemon boss battle, and I can respect that. Once we calm it down, we get another plate, and then we can head back. Back in the village, we report to the commander, and then have dinner and go to sleep. The next morning, we see Arezu is back in the village, and is now working as a hairdresser here, so she'll be a recurring character. But then Kamado shows up and asks us to accompany him somewhere, and he has us meet with some immigrants on Prelude Beach and interrogates us about our love for Pokemon. He says that he will be willing to make harsh decisions when it comes to protecting people from Pokemon, and we kinda just agree with him. But back in his office, we get our next mission from him, and it involves us going to a new area called the Cobalt Coastlands. Apparently, Arita says there's an issue here and we have to take care of it. That being said, we get to the first point in the game where I think most people will face the same wall as I did. You have to have a certain star level before you can progress in the story, and you need a 3 here, and I only have a 2. So even though we're probably just gonna skip straight to it in the video, just know that there has been hours of grinding, and there probably will be in every in-between section of the game like this. The only thing really notable that I experienced in this grinding session were these space-time distortions that will spawn rare Pokemon. It's honestly kind of hard to understand how they work, but the longer you stay inside them, the more rare Pokemon appear. I don't really get it, but we did catch a permanent team member here, and that's Eevee. If you want to know what evolution I'll be evolving it into, well, stay tuned. But anyway, we make our way to the Cobalt Coastlands and meet up with Arita, who challenges us to a battle, and we actually have to fight 2 Pokemon at once. Yeah, occasionally in this game, you're going to have to battle someone and they're gonna use multiple Pokemon while you can only use one, and I don't really know why they made that a thing, but I guess it offers a pretty difficult challenge for us. But after we beat her, she explains that the reason we are needed here in the Cobalt Coastlands is because the warden Polina is currently not raising another lord after the previous one passed away. I guess the Pro Clan really wants to have a lord protecting the land or something, and this current warden is not raising one. I don't really understand it, to be honest, but we have to go help her. So we end up finding Polina with her 2 Growlithe, and she tells the story of how their lord passed away, saving another Growlithe, and I think it's actually pretty emotional for a Pokemon game. But regardless, she asks why we're here, and it's so we can go survey Firespit Island. Technically, we're supposed to help her, but I guess we're just gonna dodge the question. She says we'll need the aid of a Pokemon known as Basculegion if we want to cross the sea and reach the island, because clearly, Wordeer cannot swim. Oh, and also the reason why we're going to Firespit Island is because there's weird shadowy figures there. Well, to get there, we have to speak to Iscan to somehow get the Basculegion, so that's our next destination. Well, right before we arrive at Iscan's house, guess who runs into us? Volo. He just tells us the same thing he does every time, that we're doing a great job collecting the plates, and he knows exactly how we do it and where we are. I don't know, just a little creepy, man. Anyway, we go to Iscan's house and we try to figure out how to get Basculegion. He seems to be very scared of everything. Well, he says in order to get Basculegion, we have to give it its favorite food, and the only way to get that is by catching a Dusclops. Once we find the Dusclops, we make the food and give it to Basculegion, and it gives us a plate. Also, Polina is here, and apparently her and Iscan are acquainted, even though they are in separate clans. But right after this, the Misfortune Bandits arrive and steal one of the Growlithes, so we also have to save them. Fortunately for us, I'm pretty sure they just went to Firespit Island as well, and that's where we're heading. After crossing the sea and arriving here, we encounter the bandits, battle them, and see that they're trying to make the Growlithe evolve. But then Iscan and Polina arrive, and well, their Growlithe seems to have jumped in the water and made them come here, and actually, it evolves into an Arcanine. But out of nowhere, something happens to it, and it starts to become frenzied, and we are in for a boss battle here. I'm not gonna lie, out of all the frenzied Pokemon so far, this is definitely the hardest. You're on a tiny little platform and he charges back and forth and creates huge flame waves. It's definitely the first time I've really struggled this game to handle these frenzies. But we're eventually able to handle the situation using the bombs that Arita made us, and we tame Arcanine. I really do like this part of the story because we go from Polina telling us how this Arcanine saw its own father die in front of its eyes, and how because of that she never wanted it to become a lord itself and didn't want to put that pressure on it. But it goes through its own struggles and becomes stronger and evolves into an Arcanine by itself. Alright, it's time to head back. We report back to the commander and he says that we did a great job and we'll have our next mission soon. We have dinner with the professor and Akari, and the next morning, you look familiar. Well, anyway, we have to get our next mission and we have to go to somewhere called the Coronet Highlands. There seems to be another frenzied Pokemon, and it's Electrode this time. We also meet the Warden of Electrode, Melly, from the Diamond Clan, although they don't really seem to be much of a nice person at all. Alright, well, we're supposed to battle Adaman next to progress the story, but of course, we have to get our next star, and we are far, far from getting it. You know, we've made a lot of progress in this game, and I have to say, I'm enjoying it. And hopefully you're enjoying this video as well. And if you are, I'd really appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel. It's free and it's the best way for you to support me. And also, wouldn't it be nice to say that you were one of my first 10,000 subscribers? Alright, well, I think we should catch up on our 2 new evolutions, Hisuian Samurott and Sylveon. These Pokemon will be on our team for the entire journey, so it's clear that we have a lot of space in our party. And after a lot of time grinding, we finally get our 4th star as well. Alright, now before we head out to the Coronet Highlands, we speak to Arita once again, and she introduces us to a man named Ingo, who we saw earlier. Now, if you have a good memory, you will immediately realize this unique character design from Pokemon Black and White, and yeah, he is from that game. Apparently, he was similar to us in how he arrived to this region, although he has memory loss, so he doesn't seem to remember any of his previous life. And I guess they can't bother to get him some new clothes either. Well, Ingo is the warden of Sneasler, who we will be introduced to very soon. Alright, so we head into the Coronet Highlands and meet up with Ingo and Melly. Even though we are supposed to go help the Electrode Frenzy situation, Melly has no interest in us helping. So Ingo and I end up going ahead anyway and making it through a cave that was clearly obstructed by Melly, and eventually we find him again and he challenges me to a battle. Still, he doesn't give up with not helping us, and we keep pushing forward and interact with Volo once again. Apparently he seems to be doing research on the ruins here, and I don't know, I'm still just very unsure of what this guy's purpose in the world is. Up ahead, we make it to the mountain that we need Sneasler to scale, but first Ingo wants to battle us. After this, he summons Sneasler and we quickly tame it, getting yet again another plate. With Sneasler by our side, we can climb all of these mountains and make it to the Electrode fight, and this one is more overstimulating than it is difficult. Even though there are plenty of attacks to avoid, you also do have way more space than fighting the Hisui and Arcanine. And after a quick battle and throwing bombs at it, we eventually get it to calm down, and we can head back to Jubilife. We report to the commander and have dinner with the professor and Akari and head to bed. When we wake up, we meet with the leaders of the Diamond and Pearl clan to meet with Kamado. Apparently, we have one final lord to quell the frenzy of. Yeah, already. We have to go to the Alabaster Icelands to go help the Avalugg, which is frenzied. And apparently this one is the largest we've faced so far. Well, first, we have to report to the captain, and I guess we walked in on something? Well, anyway, we have to get our 5th star, and as you know, there is a lot of grinding for us to do, so let's go do that. Now here, the most notable thing that I want to bring up is I want to introduce our next 2 party members. First, we caught a Gibble that we trained into a Gabite using the EXP candies, and I also went ahead and picked up a Hisuian Growlithe. With our new team members and a lot of grinding complete, we eventually get our 5th star, and we're ready to move on into the next area. But first, Akari wants to battle us, and this time she has a Mr. Mime, her Pikachu, and a Staravia. While she definitely does put up more of a fight than usual, we still beat her without that much of a challenge. And now we can head into the final area of the game, the Alabaster Icelands. Here, with the help of Adamant and Arita, we look for a man named Garrick, who is the warden for Avalugg. At first, he's not really willing to help us because he's just defending the Avalugg and saying it did nothing wrong, but really we're just trying to help him, and after a battle, we convince him to let us go and save it. He also says that we need to speak to another warden named Sabi, who has a braviary that we're gonna need to traverse the area. When we meet Sabi, it turns out that she's just a kid, and she has us walk around this entire region chasing her on her braviary. Eventually, she leads us to this temple, and we have to figure out all of these puzzles inside it. Basically, there's this code that we have to input on the wall, and it's dependent on where these statues are looking. At first, it was kind of confusing, but once I understood it, it was not a challenge at all. At the end, Asabi is waiting for us to battle us, and it's a 3-on-1 fight, and these are all pretty strong Pokemon too. Somehow, though, the battle wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, and we head outside to meet Braviary. After a quick battle with it, it gains our trust and gives us the Sky Plate. And we have finally gotten our last ride Pokemon, Braviary, which allows us to fly across the region. Now, before we can take on Avalugg, we have to search for the Eternal Ice that it really wants, and apparently we need to calm it down, and oh my god. I can't believe this happened, but we finally found our second shiny in all of our playthroughs. It's kind of funny because the only other shiny I ever found was a male Combee, which is probably one of the most useless Pokemon ever. And now we found a shiny Sneasel, which of course evolves into one of the best Pokemon in the game, Sneasler. I mean, isn't it obvious that this is our next team member? And you know, at this point I was in the mood and decided to explore the other regions with our new Braviary, and yeah, we found a Firestone and evolved our Hisuian Growlithe into a Hisuian Arcanine. And with this we can finally get the Eternal Ice and challenge the last Frenzied Lord, Avalugg. While this may seem easy at first, it is actually quite challenging because you have a tiny platform you have to avoid all of its attacks on. Even though it doesn't move, well, you can barely move yourself. And so with the last Frenzied frenzied Pokemon calm down, we head back to the village. We report to the commander for the final time, and we can live out the rest of our days here as a normal Survey Corps member. Well, that's if this didn't happen the very next day. When we wake up, there is a giant darkness that is spread across the sky, and we're immediately called into the commander's office. Seemingly out of nowhere, he kicks us out of the village. Just like that. No discussion about it, just kicks us out and leaves us to die in the wilderness. But it's not like our friends have given up on us, although they can't really do much anyway since they answered to the commander just as we did. Now stuck in the wilderness, all we can do is look for help where we can, and so we try Leanne and we try Mai, but they both decline helping us because they don't want to ruin the politics with the Galaxy team. And I mean, I guess that's fair enough. But then finally, the man who I've been very suspicious of this whole playthrough actually turns out to be a really nice guy. He offers us shelter in his hideout with another woman named Kojita, and apparently she knows a lot about this world that we don't. She very vaguely tells us our role in saving the world, which, I mean, I guess makes sense, but it also doesn't make sense at all. But then we get a notification on our Arceus phone that displays the location of 3 different lakes. I can see where this is heading. But while we're all discussing what to do next, there's a sound of an Abra outside, and it's actually the captain delivering a message for us. She says that she'll allow us to use her Pokemon to navigate the various areas in the game. And also, Arita and Adaman arrive, and they said that one of them can help, but if both of them help, then it would be a little too suspicious. So we asked for Arita's help, and it turns out that we're not really as alone as we thought we were. So our next quest is to visit 3 of these lakes and meet the legendary Pokemon Mesprit, Azelf, and Uxie. These trials have you fighting a few alpha Pokemon and answering some tricky questions, but the goal of all this is to get their energy to make the red chain. Yes, the same thing that Cyrus wanted in Pokemon Platinum. After we collect all of their energy, we can create the red chain and make for Mount Coronet. But first, let's head back to the village to speak with our friends again, because we heard that the Commander Kamado is actually building up a huge force to go to Mount Coronet and handle the situation himself. Obviously though, we know he can't. Back in the village, we update our friends of what's going on and actually train a little bit. And we finally evolve our Gabite into a Garchomp, leaving one last Pokemon to collect. And well, after venturing into the Coronet Highlands, I think I spotted the Pokemon that I want to get. While it might not make the biggest difference on our team at this point, I wanted to get a Magnezone because I think it's just a really great Pokemon and not a lot of people use it. And so with our team fully complete, now that we have a Sneasler as well, we can head for the final area in the game. Now as we go through the top of Mount Coronet, we meet Benny here, who is apparently guarding the front door. But I thought this guy was just a chef. Well, of course he's not actually just a chef, he's a secret ninja for the Galaxy team. You know what, man? Sure. Anyway, we actually have probably our first challenging battle of the entire game here, and it's like the last part of it. He has a Mismagius, a Sneasler, a Gardevoir, and a Gallade. So yeah, these are all good Pokemon. I mean, technically speaking, if I didn't use any items, I would have lost here. My Samurott and my Sylveon both got destroyed. My Garchomp did kind of do something, but it also got destroyed by Gardevoir, and even Sneasler and Hisuian Arcanine couldn't do much against their team. Ultimately, I ended up having to go with a Revive on Sneasler to take the last one out, but damn, that battle came out of nowhere. It kind of makes me wonder, is it only going to get harder from here? Well, at the top of Mount Coronet, which I guess is Spear Pillar, we meet Kamado, and after arguing for a bit, we decide that whoever wins this battle will get to handle the situation how they want to. While Benny's team was a lot more attacking focused, it seems that Kamado likes tanky Pokemon. Aside from Braviary, he has a Snorlax, Clefable, and a Golem. Thankfully, in Pokemon, defense does not usually win championships, and we're able to defeat him a little bit easier than Benny was. And with winning the fight, we can walk up and find the legendary Pokemon, called Almighty Sinnoh by the people here. In reality, it's just Palkia. Using the red chain, we weaken it and battle. Ultimately, we end up catching it, but right as we're celebrating, another Pokemon appears out of the portal, which is Dialga, and since we're too weak to face it right now, we run away. Regrouping with the team, we actually hear from Palkia themselves through Irida somehow that we need to take the red chain, or I guess a part of it now, a vessel of humankind's invention, which is probably a Pokeball, and a stone of creation's beginning. And with these, we can somehow defeat or capture Dialga. Laventon figures that the stone of creation's beginning is probably an ore made from the same substances as the plates, and the Warden Leon might actually know where to find something like this. So we begin our search for the thing called the Origin Ore. If we head to this cave, we can find Leon here, and unfortunately, we always have to be stopped by something. The Misfortune Sisters show up, and we learn a little bit about their lore too. Apparently, Clover has run away from the Diamond Clan, and Coin has left the Pearl Clan. Regardless, we have to battle them, and of course, they're no challenge for us at this point. I mean, look at our team. And then we send them away and extract the Origin Ore. If we take this back to the lab, the professor can make us a very special Pokeball called the Origin Ball, which is one of the coolest balls I've ever seen. Finally, we speak to Kojita and then head out of the village for our final battle. We approach Dialga and it transforms into its origin form, and then we begin our final battle, which is in the style of a frenzied noble battle. I don't know if I would say this is the hardest fight, but it's definitely up there. There are so many different attacks coming at you at once, and it's really annoying because you also have to throw these bombs at the same time, and it's really hard to find a balance of when to dodge and when to throw. But just like any other frenzy battle, once we deplete this gauge, we can throw our origin ball and win the fight, catching the origin form of Dialga. And with both almighty Sinnohs caught, the sky returns to normal and the space-time rift closes. And then the credits roll and we see that everyone is celebrating in a festival back in Jubilife. But that's not it, there is a bit of a post-game. In fact, when the credits finish, our phone beeps and says to seek out all Pokemon. When we get back in the game, we talk to Kojita again in her hideout and figure out that there are actually a lot more legendary Pokemon for us to catch. But specifically what we need is to get the remaining plates from across the region. Only then can we figure out the whole Arceus situation. The first extra plate we get is actually back in Jubilife Village, and we have to fight Commander Kamado again. His team is basically the same, except now he has a Heracross, but that doesn't really make it any harder for us to beat him. And when we do, he gives us the fist plate. Getting the next plate is actually quite the task. We have to go back to all of the lakes of the region and catch the legendary Pokemon. While these fights aren't very hard by themselves, and they don't have a hard time getting caught either, we do have the occasional battle with Adaman and Irida. Each of them will do a 3-on-1 battle against you using evolutions, and I thought this was a really nice touch. They also give you an item that I'm pretty sure is used to make the legendary Pokemon transform, but I'm not 100% sure. But after catching all of these lake legendaries, we end up getting the Draco plate. And after all this, we get another star on our survey core. But I mean, it seems like we're really far away from ever completing that. Now, for the other plates, we have to catch 3 of the legendary Pokemon in the region: Cresselia, Heatran, and Regigigas. Once again, these are not that hard to catch, unlike Sword and Shield's legendary hunt, which was quite difficult. Well, the location of the final plate is unknown, so we go to speak to Kojita, and she asks us to get her 3 pieces of wood, and she might be able to help us out. And we do that, and she gives us the plate. Seems that she just wanted to get materials to make a new cutting board, and that she was using this plate as a cutting board. Wow. Well, our last objective is to follow Volo to the top of Mount Coronet. He seems to be very eager to see Arceus just as much as us. And well, when we reach the top, he starts talking about the lack of Giratina in the area, and then he starts talking about how he wants to meet Arceus and how he sought out Giratina and that he was the one who created that rift in the sky. Yeah, that's right. Volo is actually evil and wants to recreate the world with the power of Arceus. Yeah, I mean, you really couldn't have made it any more obvious he was using us to get the plates. I mean, he was kind of watching us the entire game since the beginning. Well, considering there's one more plate and he technically has it, I think we should probably protect ours from being stolen. And so we begin the final battle with Volo. I'm not gonna lie, I lost the first time around here. So that's probably the first time I've lost a Pokemon battle in this entire game. I'm not lying. Volo's team is quite formidable, with him having a Spiritomb, Roserade, Togekiss, Arcanine, Lucario, and Garchomp. After getting beaten the first time, I went back in with a little bit of a better understanding of his team. He starts off with Spiritomb, which is actually pretty easy to take down. This is not a great Pokemon, to be honest, because it is weak to fairy type moves. But then he starts calling back his Pokemon, which was kind of annoying. Then he sends out Roserade. Yeah, sadly we lost our Sylveon to a random poison jab, and I just couldn't believe it, because we do need Sylveon for later really badly. Well, we sent Arcanine out to take out Roserade, and then Volo sends Lucario. And unfortunately, due to how badly leveled we are, we cannot defeat Lucario with just one Flare Blitz, and my Arcanine gets taken down. Things are not looking good. We have Samurott come in to take out Lucario, and then switch in Magnezone to hopefully get rid of that Togekiss. But unfortunately, this level situation is not good. We should be destroying his team, but we are so underleveled, man. So we have Sneasler come out and take it down, but then something really strange happened. Spiritomb moved before Sneasler. I mean, in terms of speed, that is literally a coughing baby versus a hydrogen bomb. So that is a problem unique to only Legends Arceus here. So we lose our Sneasler, and now we send out Samurott to deal with the situation, but I don't know, man. We lost so much of our team already. We have Samurott use Hydro Pump on Garchomp, but it is all for naught, and it gets destroyed by Earth Power. We do have one Pokemon left, and it is our own Garchomp. So we send it out, and it destroys his remaining Garchomp and Arcanine, and we beat Volo by the skin of our teeth. But then Volo starts talking, and then Giratina appears. And then the most unthinkable thing ever happens. Our one Pokemon left, with not even full HP, doesn't even get a chance to defend itself. Giratina moves first, uses Dragon Claw, and one-shots our Garchomp, sending us all the way back to before Volo's fight. I mean, if there was any gripe I've had with this game so far, I swear to God, this battle system is just stupid. So I went to train, and I trained a lot. So much so that when I came back to Volo, I took all of my pent-up anger out on him. While not all of our Pokemon survived the Volo fight, most of them did, and now we are ready for Giratina. This fight is still challenging, don't get me wrong. I mean, Giratina is a really strong Pokemon. But eventually, we can take it down, right? Well, I guess not. So there's actually another phase. Yes, this is a 3-phase boss fight in a Pokemon game. I mean, I've never seen this before. Well, this is really bad. We do not have that many Pokemon left, and it's gonna be a struggle to win this, but we fight, and we're left with our last Pokemon, Samurott, here, and it can't get any more poetic than this. With a final ceaseless edge from Samurott, we take down Giratina and beat Pokemon Legends Arceus. Well, technically there's another fight where you can battle Arceus, but you have to catch every single Pokemon in the game, and I don't know if that's a realistic thing for me to do without just rushing through it. So yeah, that's the game. After beating this game, I think for the first time in a while, I was genuinely shocked with my experience. After years of playing these games, I've come to expect the same thing over and over again. Ironically, for a little while, I didn't love how this game didn't have that feeling. The first 2 hours of this game are unbearably slow and full of cutscenes. I gotta be honest, when this game came out, I just played up until the Lilligant battle, but I lost my save, and I really did not want to play through all that again. You know what though? I'm really glad I gave it another chance. Once you break free from the tutorial, you get a level of freedom like never before in Pokemon. Maybe except for the Crown Tundra DLC. While a lot of the world feels slightly empty and the quests aren't the most intricate, this game feels like the start of a new era for the franchise. Knowing what comes after in terms of Legends ZA, I do have a lot to critique though. It might seem strange for me to have played ZA before this, but I did, which you'll see in an upcoming video. But this future experience really ended up influencing how I saw all of the features of Legends Arceus, and I really started to realize how much ZA improved on this game. I don't want to say that Legends Arceus did a lot of bad, but it really did have a lot of primitive elements in it that I won't miss. First of all, the battle system is weird. I did end up getting used to it, but I don't love the hybrid system of the battles being set pieces, but the gameplay is open and free. I don't mind if they do that for trainer battles, but wild Pokemon, it just doesn't feel right. Oftentimes, it just made me not want to battle any Pokemon, which sucks because you're gonna have to do a lot of that if you want to experience everything this game has to offer. I don't hate the agile and strong style though. I have to admit, there are certain situations where the turn order thing just seems unfair. Like, what do you mean I didn't even get to do anything before Giratina ended my run? I literally just had to stand there and take it. I didn't hate the 2 or 3-on-1 battles though. Even if they seemed a bit unfair, I don't know if it was because they were balanced well or not, but whatever. Now, as for the other features like crafting, well, it was nothing special. This is like the most basic crafting system a game could never have, so I won't say it's bad, but I barely noticed that I had this feature at all. It's not like money's too hard to get in this game, and once you do have a lot of it, you can just buy most of the items anyway. As for the clothing options, I think this is a really good selection here. I mean, it's not hard to impress me after Sword and Shield's god-awful and BDSP's non-existent character customization, but nevertheless, I think this game had great clothes, mixing older Japanese styles and Western ones too. One feature I do want to bring up besides this side stuff though is the actual side quests. Ironically, these don't feel like side quests at all because of how important ranking up your stats are to progress the story. I wouldn't say this game flat out required you to do all these quests, but it definitely feels difficult to get points to rank up without them. And I just want to clarify, they do feel like side quests, but they kind of aren't side quests if you have to do them. Does that make sense? I'm not gonna lie. While I do like taking my time with games, I also consider the common experience of going through a game's story for the first time and then maybe coming back later and doing everything. Usually with Pokemon, I can casually go through them and reach the end without much grinding at all. So Legends Arceus did take me a bit off guard with how far away I was from ranking up by just playing through casually. It's a bit of a double-edged sword though, since you do get to explore more of what the game has to offer, but I don't know if it should have been this hard to rank up. I think this is a point a lot of people might not agree with though, but I get it. Alright, there are 2 more major points I want to bring up in this analysis: the music and the graphics. The music in Legends Arceus definitely takes a step in a different direction than every other game, most likely due to trying to fit the mood of a more open environment. The majority of the tracks are simple ambiance with the occasional callbacks to the music of Gen 4. Some of these are very great and memorable, while others are intentionally forgettable. Then of course, there are the tracks in the game which I call set pieces. These are the themes that will be remembered for years, so I do judge them pretty harshly. Now, these themes, specifically the battle music, is really good. Whether it's just a wild Pokemon or the named trainers, they did really nail the music in this department, but I do have one gripe with this game, and people might laugh at me for it. The initial version of Jubilife Village's theme is so annoying. It's literally the same loop over and over again. I want to get out of the city as fast as possible. But you know what? I guess this makes sense narratively. No point in staying in the village early in the game anyway, but later on, the song does end up developing more and it gets kinda nice. It's a callback to the original song. And the town develops just as you are as a player. But enough of that. It's time to actually talk about the worst part of this game. I mean, there's a lot great to talk about here. You know, the Hisuian forms, the music, the open world vibes. But you know what isn't good? The fact that this is the ugliest open world style of game I've ever seen. Pokemon Sword and Shield might not have looked great in their wild area, but at least it looked awesome in the DLC. But dude, do I even need to say anything when you see the game look like this? I don't even know how it's possibly this bad. It looks so pixelated and gross around things like the water specifically. I was shocked when I got to the Cobalt Coastlands and it looked like this. And not to mention the attack animations in battle just flat out look worse than Sword and Shield, which is another strange downgrade. The character models and designs are great, which I'm happy about, but I really do wish that care extended beyond them. I genuinely thought my console had some sort of glitch or bug at some points in the game because of how choppy the graphics were, but no, that's just the reality of this game. So with all that being said, I believe that Pokemon Legends Arceus is not only good, it's actually great. No Pokemon game is flawless, but I think there's a level of respect I have for the gameplay of Legends Arceus that I don't necessarily have for a lot of other Pokemon games. This game doesn't feel like any other in the franchise, which really ups the replayability. This is a really fun world to traverse, and even though it's not technically open world, it does feel like it most of the time. The ride Pokemon are incredibly well utilized here, and I'm glad to see each of them having an important use. I feel like in a game like Sword and Shield, the ride Pokemon didn't even really feel like it because you had a bicycle and you had a Lapras on the water. That was pretty much it. But I like when you actually interact with the Pokemon and use use them to their full capabilities in the open world. Now, I know I didn't explore this world completely, there was a lot of Pokemon I still needed to catch, and I didn't get that last Arceus fight. But you know, I did that on purpose. If I wanted to do that, this video would take way longer, and I feel like I would just be rushing to the end of it, and I really didn't want to do that. This is a game I want to take my time with, and hey, I might even take that Sneasler into Pokemon Champions. Regardless, I fully intend to return to Legends Arceus many times in the future. However, I think it's time for my next Pokemon game to be something that takes me back to the basics, and I think I know just the right one. If you got this far in the video, I want to say thank you so much for watching, and if you're not already subscribed, make sure you do that. And if you are subscribed, you should join my channel memberships. I just recently opened it up, and we have a lot of exclusive content coming to it. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video.